Welcome to the 7th session of the marriage course, where we're going to be talking about how we put love into action.
A group of children were asked their views on love and marriage. The first question they were asked was, how can a stranger tell if two people are married? Rick, aged 8, said, they might have to guess, based on whether they're yelling at the same kids.
The next question was, what do most people do on a date? Leah, aged 8, said, dates are for having fun, and people should use them to get to know each other. Even boys have something to say if you listen long enough.
In answer to the question, when is it okay to kiss someone? Michelle, aged 10, replied, it is never okay to kiss a boy. They always slobber all over you.
And to the final question, how do you make love last? 2 8-year-old boys gave some particularly valuable advice for husbands. Ben said, be a good kisser. It might make your wife forget that you never take the rubbish out. Meanwhile, Tom advised, don't forget your wife's name. That will mess up love.
And if you asked an adult what love is, they'd usually define it in terms of feelings. But we believe love is more than just feelings. Love is about what we do. It involves action.
Love always means making a sacrifice for the sake of another. A marriage that is full of love is one in which we're giving to each other, where we're aiming to meet our husband or wife's needs so as to make them feel loved.
We asked some people on the street questions about love. The first question we asked was, how do you like to give and receive love?
To make me feel loved, well, we always talk to each other about how we feel, what's going on. We always let each other know that we're there for one another.
She does everything for me. Cooks, cleans, loves, compromises, everything.
Little notes under the pillow, little surprises. You know, things that don't cost a lot but mean a lot.
He tells me he loves me all the time.
I do all sorts of things. Maybe I'd sing a song for them.
Des massages in the morning, my baby.
Ouais, des petits massages, des bons petits repas.
Les regards.
Des attentions,
Les
voilà.
regards.
Knowing that she's there to care for me is very important.
Well, giving her time, spending time with her, you know, taking her out for some coffee or maybe McDonald's, I don't know, whatever.
He sends me email messages, even though we work in the same office. We have a system where we have lunch, on Thursdays, and so it's something to look forward to.
I'm quite tactile, so I will hug and kiss and things like that. And he'll say, "Oh, I love you, babe."
A little kiss, little touch, little feel when the kids aren't looking.
I think for men, sometimes they think if you buy you a big present, then you should be wow, but sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's actually when you're feeling down and they said, oh, I've done all the hoovering or done this, it's actually more thoughtful. So it's like these kind of things.
Coming up with little things in everyday life that show that you know them, understand them, and treasure them.
He likes watching cricket, and I don't like it much, so I try to develop an interest and I try to watch it along with him.
Just doing the simple things, taking care of the baby without asking, without me asking, or, just doing things like that, or just coming up to me and giving me a kiss on the cheek or putting his hands through my hair. Just little things that say, I love you.
And she does things with the baby that I don't have to ask her to do as well, so that's good.
I give him hugs, kisses, I cook him a good dinner, and I tell him I love him, and I cuddle his big head. That's all. And I think he feels quite good, and then I put on him a new shirt I bought for him.
This session is based on one of the most helpful books that we've ever read on marriage, called The 5 Love Languages. It was written by marriage counsellor and author Gary Chapman. In it, he describes 5 separate ways of showing love.
One way is with our words, through encouraging our partner, saying, I love you, you're great, or giving compliments like, you look gorgeous, or by speaking about them positively in public.
A second way is through giving presents, such as buying flowers or giving them an unexpected treat or even making something for them.
Thirdly, through touch, taking our husband or wife's hand, giving them a hug, a kiss, all the way through to making love to them.
Fourthly, with our time, such as when we set aside time to sit down to talk with our partner and focus our attention exclusively on them.
And finally, through actions, by doing practical things for each other, being thoughtful, looking for ways to help each other.
For each one of us, one of these ways will be more important than the others for us to feel loved. It'll communicate love most effectively to us.
For me, it's through Scylla's encouraging words that I feel most loved. But for Scylla, it's time together that's most important for her. And what we do or where we go is not so significant. I remember one occasion in the middle of winter, and it was my turn to organise our marriage time. We'd set aside 2 hours in the middle of the day, and I thought it'd be really nice to go for a leisurely walk up to the park, which is about half an hour from where we live. Well, it was one of those rather overcast days in London when everything looked rather grey and there was a cold, rather damp wind blowing. When we got to the park, there seemed to be an unusual amount of litter blowing around, and everyone we saw, well, many people, I suppose because of the weather, looked rather depressed. Even the ducks on the pond, I thought, looked depressed. And by the time we got back home, I think I felt a bit depressed myself, a bit flat. As I was making Scylla a cup of coffee, I was just about to say, "I'm so sorry, my darling, I don't think that was my best idea for our marriage time," when I realised that Scylla seemed to be in a great mood.
Yeah, I came back feeling fantastic because I'd had Nicky all to myself. We hadn't seen anybody we knew, Nicky didn't answer his phone, and we could talk uninterrupted. And spending that sort of time together always makes me feel really special, and particularly when Nicky's initiated it. So I wasn't feeling depressed at all.
Gary Chapman describes these ways of expressing love as love languages, because at least one of the 5 communicates love to us in a way that we immediately understand, just like we understand our native language. Some people are bilingual, of course, and it can be the same with these love languages. That is, there can be 2 that are almost equally effective in communicating love to us. So, for myself, words are closely followed by actions. And I know that if Scylla had kept all of her affirming words and helpful actions for our children and hadn't given any to me, I wouldn't feel very loved by her.
For me, time is followed closely by touch. If Nicky gave all his time and touch to his computer, but not to me, I wouldn't feel there was much love in our marriage.
We use those 2 examples of how easy it is to focus on the children or the computer because that's exactly what does happen so often in a marriage. But it also shows that Scylla and I are very different. Between us, we cover 4 out of the 5 love languages.
In our experience, most couples are different. And the reason there's no feelings of love in many marriages is because we tend to show love in the way we like to receive it. That is, we use our own native love language and then are surprised when our partner doesn't feel loved by us.
We tend to want to give in the way that we want to receive. And that was something that was so important for us to really readjust in our relationship because we were each giving in the way we wanted to receive, and the other person wasn't getting what they wanted. Jim was giving me presents. I didn't, they were fine, but it's like, I really wanted you to make toast and coffee for me in the morning, He wanted me to reach over and when maybe we're driving home and rub his shoulders and pat his hand. And so we've learned to kind of talk the other person's language rather than one talking French and one talking Spanish and neither one knowing what the other one said.
Some people think that their husband or wife should automatically understand their way of showing love. But that's like thinking the French should understand English if we speak slowly and loudly enough. If we want to communicate effectively in France, we must learn to speak French. And we must communicate love to our husband or wife in the way that they best understand it. We must learn their love language. It's no good a husband saying, "But I kept telling her I loved her," if his wife's love language is time.
It's no good his wife saying, "But I worked so hard for him," if his love language is touch.
It's no good another husband saying, "But I bought her all those presents," if his wife's love language is words.
So his love language is acts of service. I was not doing that very well, and I know that because it's not my primary love language. So I would gift him because that was my primary love language, and he would do all these acts of service, and we were just clashing. And
well, I didn't appreciate presents. It didn't, and frankly, most of the presents I would return, or with her return them, because I didn't need it. I buy what I need when I need it, rather than expect a present. It just doesn't resonate with me.
When we first try using our partner's love language, it can feel odd, rather artificial and a bit forced. Some people think that love should always be natural and spontaneous.
But loving effectively can take real work, just like learning a foreign language. Early in our marriage, we lived in Japan for 3 years, and I tried very hard to learn Japanese. At first, it felt very unnatural. It was difficult to get my mouth in the right shape to pronounce the sounds, and I had to put my tongue in places in my mouth that felt very strange. And it can feel rather like that when we have to learn a new love language that doesn't come naturally to us.
Her family's just overflowing words of love and grace, and my family's not. We love each other just the same, but we just express it differently. And so for me, it's just really hard. It just doesn't come naturally to me. So her family's always, "Please and thank you, and you look great." I've got 3 brothers, and so when we go home, we make fun of each other and wrestle around a little bit, and we know we love each other through that. And I know, the way I interact with my family is the way I interact with my family. This is my family now, so I need to get better at her needs and acknowledging verbally.
We can all learn each other's love language. As I practiced getting my mouth around the Japanese sounds, it began to feel more natural, and Japanese people even started responding, which was a very rewarding experience. Now, before you work out what your love languages are, we're going to do a short crash course in each one.
We want to start with loving words. Words are very powerful, either to build someone up or to put them down. A lack of loving words can have damaging results in a marriage. Learning to speak this language of love can make a huge difference.
There are many different ways of using words, showing our appreciation, encouraging our partner, giving compliments. As I said earlier, Scylla's complimentary words mean a lot to me. So, if I've made something for her, I like Scylla to say something nice about it every day for at least 2 weeks. After that, every other day is fine.
Which is something I have to remember and really work at. And that's often the case. Otherwise, our partner won't feel our love.
I like quality time, but he loves words of affirmation.
Yeah, words of affirmation for me is just how I was raised, is encouraged with words quite often and praise. And I think Amy was raised more with, if it's said once, then that's all you need to do is say it once. And for my upbringing, it was, multiple times is what created affirmation in mine, and that's why it's carried to our marriage. When she gives me words of affirmation, or she tells me, job well done, or I'm proud of you, or thankful for what you do for our family or for the kids, and it makes me want to invest more in my relationship with her.
In a marriage, we can easily get complacent and take the things that we do for one another for granted. I know if Nikki says to me, "Your spaghetti bolognese is the best in the world," when I've cooked it 1,000 times, it makes a huge difference to me. It shows me he's noticed, and I feel valued, even over such a small thing. I don't feel taken for granted.
Encouraging words are also vital in a marriage.
I remember counselling a couple once, and they were about to divorce. And honestly, the air was vitriolic in the room. They just hurled insults and sarcasm at each other. And finally I said, stop. I said, "Can you tell me anything positive at all about your wife?" He answered in a heartbeat. He said, "She's a fantastic mother." I saw a look of utter astonishment across this woman's face. She had never, ever heard her husband speak positively about her in public. I said to her, can you tell me anything positive about your husband? She said, same. He's a wonderful father. And I felt the atmosphere in that room change within milliseconds. In fact, I left the room and left them talking. And when I came back an hour later, they were still talking. The power of words is awesome. And you know, sometimes I meet people. I might be talking to a man and he'll say, oh, that's just me. I'm just sarcastic. She knows, no, that's not good enough. We have to stop being sarcastic. We have to stop bringing our husband or wife down in public and begin practicing the sheer power of praise. You look good in that. Thank you for what you did. I appreciate you. Words affect love. And without loving words, relationships begin to die.
All of us have areas in our lives where we feel insecure, where we lack courage and confidence. For example, our partner may be nervous about starting a new job, and we can encourage them by saying, you're great, everyone will love you, I'll be thinking of you today. We should be our husband or wife's #1 fan.
As a stay-at-home mom, it's kind of hard when you lose your identity in kids and something as mundane as housework and the schoolwork that comes home and bills and stuff like that. And so I think like if we're out with friends or my family or something like that and Ben takes a moment to like praise me or something that I've said or something that I've written, it's totally different than if he just read something that I wrote and said, that's really good. Like if he brings it up in front of someone else and is like, guess what Andrea did? Then it's like, you're bragging about me to our friends, and I wouldn't have even said that thing, but it really made me feel seen and appreciated, and so it helps a lot when that person who knows everything about you can be your fan.
It's within our power to bring out our partner's full potential through our words. And words can be just as powerful whether said or written down.
Scott was wonderful writing me beautiful cards. He never buys pre-written cards. He was always somebody who write things. And he will put it in my purse or different places and I'll find just sweet notes. And I just can't tell you, I think we got through life not realizing the importance of a thoughtfulness and just writing something down. It costs nothing. And I just so appreciate that because it's taken the time to know what matters to me and what maybe is going to help me have a good day.
If words are your husband or wife's most important love language, being affirmed like this on a regular basis will renew their sense of feeling loved. It's a bit like a tired and thirsty traveller in a desert coming across an oasis. That's how important words can be for some people. The effect of affirming words is that they build confidence and self-esteem.
I came from a culture where you don't say a lot of things. You're supposed to know that your parents love you. They fed you last night. So invariably, they must love you. But I realized that saying it and letting her know, definitely those kind of things were important to her. I keep telling my friends that I'm the luckiest man because she doesn't even really ever ask for anything. As long as you make her comfortable and you let her know that she's loved, she is totally fulfilled.
When he uses my love language, I feel like the most important girl in the world.
The second way of expressing love is by giving thoughtful presents. Presents are visual symbols of love. They communicate strongly at an emotional level. If you're a natural spender, this means of expressing love probably won't be too difficult. But if you're a natural saver, you may find it just a little bit more challenging. If you don't buy non-essential things for yourself, you probably won't think of spending money on your husband or wife. For those of you who are savers, maybe you could see it as an investment in your relationship.
I love gifts.
And actually it was difficult for me early on because my parents are very frugal. My father's done well in life, but he doesn't like to spend money frivolously on flowers and things of that nature. That just is beyond his capacity. And frankly, my mother seems, and has always seemed, fine with that. Well, that is not the way I can interact with Justina. She has to, I buy her flowers pretty regularly.
I just need to have the presents.
Yeah.
There are 3 things that we want to highlight about giving presents. First, they can be inexpensive, but still have a high value as a visual symbol of love. For example, one flower picked from the garden, or your partner's favourite chocolate bar left with a note. It doesn't cost much, but in emotional terms, it can mean a great deal.
I think he does gifts better than any husband I've ever met. And he says he just goes to where I would go and gets what he thinks I would get. And it's like, it's awesome. He does a really good job.
Secondly, don't only wait for special occasions. It doesn't have to be only birthdays, anniversaries or Christmas. Spontaneous and unexpected presents can be fantastic and make someone feel very special and loved. For example, if our husband or wife is going through a particularly hard time, a present can communicate, I'm with you in this difficulty. I understand. I care about you. Or if there's an achievement to celebrate, a present means I'm proud of you.
Thirdly, actively discover what presents your partner likes to receive. Obviously, it needs to be within your budget. Think back to things your partner has said they've especially liked over the years, from yourself or from others. There's such a range of presents. Tickets to a football match or a concert, something to eat or drink that they probably wouldn't buy for themselves, something they like collecting.
Some people like surprise presents, others really don't. And for some, the way it's wrapped up is as important as the present itself.
About the wrapping, it's just the way we were brought up as kids. My mom and family would just gift us with things, and that was a primary love language within our home. We didn't come for much, but you just knew whatever you got, it was just that person thought of you. And that is one of my major love languages.
I'm not a good enough rapper.
Yeah, it's okay.
The best present givers are those who find out what the other person likes, rather than giving what they themselves would like to receive. Does your husband or wife like very practical presents or something more decorative?
Nicky and I are quite different. He loves practical presents and I really don't. And when we first got married, I gave Nicky lots of weird and impractical things that, looking back on now, I realise I liked, but he really didn't very much, though he didn't let on. And I've learned over the years, and now I really try hard, to give him the thing that he's probably asked me to give him. So, for example, recently he asked me to give him a battery-powered pencil sharpener for his birthday. Well, I just found that so hard to do, as I thought that is a really boring present.
But for me, it was one of the best presents Scylla's ever given me. It also took me a while to learn that Scylla doesn't like practical presents. When we'd been married about 5 years, our home had 2 loos, 2 toilets, both of which had very uncomfortable plastic seats. And I suddenly had a brilliant idea of what to get Scylla for Christmas. I went out and I bought a very smart pair of wooden seats. I was so excited, I couldn't wait to give them to her. Now, Scylla's normally very good at expressing her excitement when she opens presents, but even she struggled to think of anything nice to say when she opened them and saw what I'd given her. I'd have loved them.
Does anybody see my point? The disappointment factor was massive, but I suppose we are still using them 25 years later. We want you to take a few minutes now to tell your partner what have been the best presents that you've received from them. And be specific. Explain why they were so special and meant so much to you. And don't be hurt if it's not what you expected to hear. It's never too late to change. The third way of expressing love is through touch. Gary Chapman wrote, "To touch my body is to touch me. To withdraw from my body is to distance yourself from me."
Touch speaks louder than any words to some people. And you'll know whether or not that's you. It communicates love where it's given and rejection where it's withheld.
The physical touch, gosh, maybe it was lacking in my childhood, and it's very important for me That's how you tell me that you love me.
Where I'm the lowest in my love language, Craig is the highest. The irony of it is I come from a much more affectionate family than Craig does. It's like we grew up in polar opposite families, but then we've got these polar opposite needs too. We have to be intentional. I have to be intentional in that physical touch. That is how Craig understands that he is loved by me.
For me, as Nikki said, touch is a very close second to time. And Nikki knows from years of experience that if I'm worried or stressed about something, the best thing he can do is to take me in his arms, hug me, hold me, and kiss me. And things suddenly seem to get much better as a result.
Touch that communicates love can be shown in lots of different ways. We need to use the whole range and know what's appropriate at particular times. So, could be holding hands, arm around the waist, a kiss, a hug, a hand on a hand, a brush of the body as you pass, a back massage, sexual foreplay right through to making love. Both sexual and non-sexual touch are vital between a husband and wife.
For me, as a guy, I feel like if we're gonna have sex, it's like, all right, babe, you know, let's do it, let's get it done. Whereas physical touch and the opportunity to be able to hold hands and to be able to give her a hug and to be able to care for her after work and kind of do things throughout the day actually is something that builds us up and creates intimacy with one another without even having to worry about, you know, sex afterwards or whatever.
It's like putting your arm around me at church, or like putting your hand on the small of my back, like leading me into a restaurant, making me feel like special. I need this. This is like a need of mine. So it's like two sides of a coin where you really need both to be healthy.
If you are someone who finds it difficult to show physical affection, you really can learn.
And it's worth being aware that if you're going through a tough time in your sexual relationship, it may not only cause feelings of frustration sexually, but can also cause your partner to feel unloved, especially where touch is their number one love language. So it's really important that you still make the effort to show affection to each other in non-sexual ways.
The fourth love language is quality time. Quality time means more than being together in the same place. It involves focusing our attention on each other. Gary Chapman tells the story of a couple who came to see him. Both husband and wife worked full-time, and she suffered from ill health. So he did all he could when he got home from work to express his love to his wife. He cooked, he cleaned, he looked after the garden. This husband said to Gary Chapman, "She still says she feels that there's no love in our marriage. What more does she expect from me?" At which point, the man's wife said to him, "I wish you would stop doing things and sit down with me just to talk."
Clearly, he felt love through actions, while she felt love through time. For someone for whom this is their love language, a lack of time can cause them to withdraw.
Ben's love language is quality time, and he always wants me to stop my long to-do list and just sit and be with him, and that's real hard for my personality type.
That we have shared experience together is really important for me.
He's a writer, and so he always wants me to read his thing and give real specific on his feedback, and
not affirmation, criticism.
Both. There's stages where you're like, I just don't have time to focus on that. I'm gonna do the dishes even though that's not gonna make you feel loved. I might serve him in a lot of other ways or say encouraging things or whatever, but if I don't sit, then it's not gonna matter.
We want to look at 3 aspects of friendship which all involve quality time together. First of all, talking together, sharing our thoughts, feelings, fears, hopes and disappointments with each other. We need quality time to be able to express to one another our thoughts and feelings, whether they're positive or negative.
When she gives me quality time, actually, I think the greatest thing it does is it allows me to love her right back. So invariably, what that does is it helps both of us to now subsequently love each other in response. And I think that's one of the greatest things about difficulties of marriage. If you feel that it is one way, it restricts you from wanting to give back to your spouse. So when she does use your love language or does what you really enjoy, it makes you just want to do so much more back for her.
A second way of spending quality time together is through eating together. Mealtimes present some of the best opportunities for quality time, and we need to make use of them. Years ago, when our children were young, we left them with their grandparents for 3 days so that we could spend some time on our own. And we went to stay in a small hotel in the Highlands of Scotland. And we'd been really looking forward to this opportunity to finish a sentence without being interrupted by the children.
I'll never forget going into the dining room the first night. It was full of couples sitting at tables for two, and all of them looked as though they'd been married much longer than us. However, apart from the sound of knives and forks on plates, there was total silence.
We were given a table right in the middle of the room, and we sat as close as possible, talking in whispers so that our conversation wasn't overheard by everyone else.
And I remember thinking, I'm sure if those same couples had been out with friends, or even if they'd been at a party with complete strangers, they wouldn't have sat in silence throughout the evening. They would have made an effort to initiate conversation. The tragedy for many married couples is that they fail to recognise that the greatest effort should be made with each other.
We've made dinner time very important. For us at night, to stop work or stop what we're doing and really sit down to dinner and have a full 45 minutes to an hour conversation about our day is good, because my typical way of communicating is flying in through the door, starting to tell him about my day where he could be in the middle of something and I'm rattling off for 15, 20 minutes and then I got the eyes glazed over and whatever. So I have to slow down and realize, you know what, we need to prioritize our time together.
Yeah, we do make a point to make that 1 hour or an hour and a half of kind of a shutdown from the outside world. I'll turn off the lights except for the light over the dining room table, and that's when our one-on-one private time occurs.
Thirdly, having fun together. Friendships are built on shared experiences. Shared experiences give us a store of shared memories. On our marriage preparation course, we get the engaged couples to write down a list of the things that they enjoy doing together. And their list includes all sorts of things like going to the cinema, playing a sport together, going for a walk, cooking together, shopping, exploring new places together, and so on.
Our aim is that in 5 years' time, they can ask themselves if they're still having fun together, doing the things that they both enjoy. During the marriage course, we've given you homework that we hope has stimulated further conversation. But it's important not to be always analysing our relationship or to become over-intense. This can be draining for some people. We all need fresh experiences in order to breathe fresh life into our relationship. And that's where our marriage time can help.
We do a lot of fun things on date nights, and we try to do new things, but sometimes just being in the comfort of our home now and making a fire and making dinner together and just relaxing together and talking. We're getting ready to do a fencing class that will start here in a month.
Hopefully we won't be fencing one another, we'll just learn how to do it, right?
In this next exercise, we're going to get you to think of the things that you enjoy or have enjoyed doing together, or perhaps you'd like to start doing together. You could then use your lists as ideas for your marriage time in the weeks to come.
The fifth love language is kind actions. This is expressing love through doing things for each other, through seeking to meet our husband or wife's desires and needs in practical ways. So it's things like cleaning the house, making them a cup of tea, doing the finances, helping with a job application, making them their favourite meal.
Mine was physical affection and loving words, and yours was special actions and time together. After we had been through the course, I decided one morning, well, I'm going to go and fix Jimmy breakfast. Now, I'm not a great cook. I'm not a cook at all. She is. But But I know what she usually fixes for breakfast, so I got her some walnut cranberry toast and put some cream cheese on it, and I think I got you a couple of cuties on it, and her coffee, and sat and put it on a tray and took it into the bedroom. And that was my loving action for her. Well, guess what? I got my love language met because she gave me a hug and a kiss afterwards. So physical affection. So they dovetail together.
This is the second most important of the 5 expressions of love for me. And Scilla does many things on a regular basis that mean a lot to me. But I particularly love it when she does something I'm not expecting, such as packing for me if I've had to go away overnight and have been under pressure, or bringing me tea and toast when I've been struggling to prepare a talk. Often the crisis has been self-inflicted through taking on too many commitments, and I felt really loved by Scilla's kindness and thoughtfulness. And after many years of marriage, I continue to be amazed by all that Scilla does for me, both the routine and the non-routine. And I sometimes catch myself wondering, why does she still do all these things? And the only answer that I can come up with every time is, it must be because she loves me.
A damaging attitude in marriage is to think it must be fair. I did that for you, so you should do this for me. Or, I'll do this if you do that. And when life is hectic, the instinctive question that we ask is, why isn't he or she helping me? It's so much better to turn it around and ask the question, is there something I can do to help you? If actions mean a lot to our partner, that will be especially important.
Those are the 5 ways of showing love, through words, presence, touch, time, and actions. We're now going to hear from our feature couple, Paul and Sonia, who've been married for 7 years and did the course at the end of their first year of marriage.
One of the really exciting things that we got out of the course had to do with the session that we did on love languages.
We hadn't even heard of the concept of love languages. We didn't know that they existed.
We didn't really understand how each other wanted to receive love. I would do what worked for me, and Paul would love me in the way that it worked best for him.
My number 1 love language is physical touch. And I think in the first year of our marriage, before we went on the course, I would put my arm around Sandra and give her a kiss and a cuddle.
I grew up in the States and had a loving upbringing, but we didn't necessarily go around showing physical affection.
I didn't understand why it wasn't that exciting for her as it was for me.
My mum and dad didn't necessarily show their love to each other that way, holding hands and kissing in public and this kind of thing. So coming to Europe and living here and seeing that, I didn't realize just how unaccustomed to this type of thing I was.
And it was only after taking the course that I then understood, well, actually, that is not her prime love language, therefore it doesn't do for her what it does for me. And I just would not have known that had we not gone on the course.
Because I've come to understand that physical touch is very important to Paul, I try to make sure that, I hold his hand or hug him or something like that.
And it's appreciated.
My number 1 love language is kind words. It's important to get encouragement, whether it's about my work or it's how I look when we're getting ready to go out. If I've made a nice meal, I need feedback and I need to hear him say that.
I realized that kind words are something that's important to her, more important than they are to me. It took me a little while to understand this, and I wouldn't necessarily have understood that that's something that she needs before we took the course.
I love words, as I am a writer.
And she's asked me to be one of the readers when she has written a novel, the manuscript. We then have long sessions of, well, what did you think of this character? What did you think of that character? And I understand that she needs the feedback, she needs the encouragement, she needs those kind words about what it is she's doing for her livelihood.
Through the course, we learned that this is really important to me, the number 1 thing. And so he does make more of an effort these days. We came to understand so much about the way that we could relate to each other and convey our feelings and love to each other.
It has changed our attitude towards each other, and we understand now that we do have love languages and that they are different, that we don't have the same love language. And I think that's the big realization that has come out of taking the course.
Somehow in our just day-to-day of being with each other, we've just incorporated that. It's a part of us now, and it's fantastic.
We want you to turn now to the exercise in your manual entitled Discovering Your Own and Your Partner's Love Languages. And one of the best ways of doing that is by thinking of specific occasions when you've known your husband or wife's love for you.
To give you an example, yesterday I asked Scylla to write out a list of 12 ways that she feels loved by me. And I asked her not to tell me what she'd put. So, this is the list. And this is what she wrote. The top 12 occasions I know you love me, brackets, feel very loved by you. Number 1, when you think up special surprises, brackets, every so often, for our marriage time, like tickets to the theatre. Number 2, when you initiate and plan a night or two away together, just like you did a few weeks ago. Phew, I'm glad I managed to book that hotel. I'm really looking forward to our 4 days away at the end of May, though it was a very close call, you forgetting to book the room.
It was, wasn't it?
One of the best parts is talking about it and deciding where to go, because then I can plan and look forward to it. Number 3, the way you often come up to me and put your arms around me and kiss me, or touch me in some other affectionate way, when I'm totally not expecting it, like when I'm making a cup of coffee or a sandwich. Number 4, in the summer on holiday in Ireland, when you suggested we walk down to the sea at midnight to sit and watch the moon come up over the water.
Very romantic.
Number 5, when you always come round to the passenger side of the car and open the front door, open the door for me to get in, before going back round to get in the driver's side. Brackets, it must be so annoying for you, but it makes me feel very special, close brackets. Number 6, when you bring me a cup of tea in bed every morning. Number 7, when you compliment me on how I look, or when I've made a nice dinner for people. You notice the little details, which means I don't feel taken for granted. Number 8, travelling anywhere with just you. You know how much I love journeys, brackets, especially journeys other people find boring. And you make it like a treat and an adventure. Number 9, having a bath together. I ought to explain that we had to get a new bath recently, and Scylla for ages had been saying she wanted a double bath. So we've now got one of those baths that have taps in the middle where we can lie at either end, and we do have great conversations in the bath. I didn't know that was going to be on Scylla's list, though.
There's another bit to that.
There's another bit, sorry. Oh, sometimes it would be even more relaxing to have candles and classical music. You'll have to figure out how to do the music in there. I certainly will. I mean, bit of
no
rewiring.
sound system in our bathroom.
Number 10's a bit too embarrassing. I
don't need to read
won't
it.
read that out if you don't mind. Number 11, going power walking and talking with you in the early mornings. Number 12, Saturday morning, lying in bed together, reading the Bible and praying, reading the papers and not being in a rush.
It was really interesting for me to write out that list. And the first time I asked Nikki to do the same for me, I learnt so much from it about him. So now it's your turn. And we want you to do questions 1 and 2 on your own before showing each other what you've put. And then fill in questions 3 and 4. As we come to the end of the marriage course, it would be a mistake to think that we've sorted out our marriage and that's it. Some people on their wedding day say, "This is the best day of my life. It can't get any better." But marriage isn't static. It's designed to be a dynamic relationship that keeps changing.
And that's why we sum up the content of the course with the marriage wheel, because a wheel is designed to turn and to move forwards. In our first year of marriage, Scilla and I were both students and we had very little money. We needed a car, and we ended up buying a 16-year-old sports car from a cousin. Well, it wasn't perhaps the wisest decision of our marriage. The car went wrong on average about once a week. As I enjoy mending things, though, and had lots of time in those days to repair it, we managed to keep it going.
And during our summer holidays, we decided to drive out to Greece. It was an amazing adventure. We drove through countries we knew nothing about, usually sleeping on the side of the road. We visited ancient Greek ruins, swam off deserted beaches, and lived off feta cheese, olives, and tomatoes. By the time we got home, 6 weeks later, we'd covered 6,000 miles, or about 10,000 kilometres.
We did have loads of punctures and broke down several times, but we managed to bring this car back in one piece. 2 years later, we went to live in Japan, and we left the car locked up in a garage for 3 years. When we returned, I was so excited to get it out again, only to discover that just about everything on it had seized up and rust had taken its toll. It was going to be far too expensive to repair it, and so with great sadness and reluctance, we sold it for a pittance. I still get pangs of nostalgia for that car. Now, we tell you this story because cars must be driven and maintained to keep them in good working order. And it's the same with a marriage.
Marriage is a journey. It takes us through different places, over different terrain, and through different seasons. The topics that we've covered on the marriage course are the tools that we use to maintain our relationship and to keep it moving forward. Tackling problems together, telling each other when we're hurt and saying sorry to and forgiving each other, using each other's love languages, having marriage time on a regular basis, and talking about our feelings and listening to each other.
We want to have an exceptionally great marriage.
It doesn't happen just because you're living together.
We want our kids to know that through conflict, and we do have conflict, we hope that they can see us resolve that, and we hope that they can see us love each other and spend time together and care about each other, and that builds into who they are as well. And I think we always talk about how we are really looking forward to growing old together.
Talk about taking trips together and doing life together, and we're laying the foundation right now. This is the foundation. This is what this is all about, you know. And you think of how much time people spend on their cars or their clothes or their house or this or that, or making everything look beautiful, you know, and they leave their marriage in the gutter, and it's just sad to me.
I think when we both look back, we'll be happy for every moment we've invested with each other.
Other people will join us for parts of the journey. And when our marriage is working well, many others will benefit from it and enjoy travelling with us, friends, children, if we have them. For all of us, parts of the journey will be very challenging. And while our trip to Greece was very exciting, it was also hard at times. In fact, in some places, the road was so bad and this car was so low to the ground that one of us had to get out and walk for a short way so that the potholes didn't take the bottom off the car.
And like that trip, marriage is challenging. As much as a car wheel needs the rim, so with the marriage wheel, commitment holds it together. Expressing our commitment to each other is essential to the success of the journey.
We don't need to be afraid of commitment. It's actually liberating in a relationship when we can take a long view, when we're able to plan our future together, when we understand that feelings come and feelings go. We won't always be feeling infatuated. And when we believe that if things are hard now, they don't have to stay that way.
When we're both committed, there's nothing we can't work through. In fact, every difficulty can become an opportunity for growing together because we're committed to travel this journey side by side. And that'll mean understanding what's important for each other and making compromises for each other's sake.
At Christmas time, I like to decorate the house. It takes a long time to do that. You want to create this joy and love, so when people walk in your home, they just feel the Christmas spirit. And we store our boxes down in the basement, and Jeff always has to pull them out, and he's got bad allergies. And every year, we would have we would decorate the tree, and Jeff would usually put a couple ornaments on and then just get kind of grumpy because he's not feeling well from his allergies acting up. And the joy of the week comes to a halt, and there's usually an argument about, why are you doing this again? Why are we replaying this every single year?
So the compromise is, most of my job is just the hard stuff because it's a crawl space, crawling in, crawling back, and moving around everything. It's heavy and hot and not fun. I have to just get the stuff out and bring it upstairs. And Jenny and the girls will do most of the rest of it. And I wear a mask and safety goggles. I pick up my part of the bargain.
Marriage is not always easy, but it is richly rewarding. And we believe marriage at its best is an adventure of love that lasts a lifetime.
We want to say congratulations on what you've achieved so far. Some of you have been married a short time, and some for much longer. Building a marriage is a significant achievement, and in years to come, we'll look back on having built a marriage as perhaps the most important achievement of all in our lives, as many other people will benefit, including children.
Marriage takes commitment and courage. But we believe that God has called each of us to a partnership with our husband or wife that he wants to use. As the author Antoine de Saint-Exupéry said, love does not consist of gazing at each other, but in looking together in the same direction. Marriage has a purpose beyond our own happiness, and it's worth working out together how as a couple we can make a difference to others.
Marriage is more than just us being happy. As a couple, I believe our value and philosophy is to be utilized by God. It's not just for us to benefit. It's not just to raise healthy, God-fearing children, although that's a huge goal of ours and focus. It's also how can we help others with our marriage and be an example to our girls and to others in our community.
As we finish this session, we suggest that you talk about what you'd like your partner's understanding and support for concerning the future. Then, if you feel comfortable, say a prayer for each other. Otherwise, express your commitment to your future together in some other way.
We hope you've enjoyed looking to the future and learning about love languages. And we'd encourage you to continue those discussions and any other areas that have arisen out of doing the course. We want to finish by praying for your marriage.
First, a prayer written by St. Francis of Assisi in the 13th century. O Lord, make me an instrument of thy peace. Where there is hatred, let me sow love. Where there is injury, pardon. Where there is discord, union. Where there is doubt, faith. Where there is despair, hope. Where there is darkness, light. Where there is sadness, joy. Grant that we may not seek so much to be consoled as to console, to be understood as to understand, to be loved as to love. For it is in giving that we receive. It is in pardoning that we are pardoned, and it is in dying that we are born to eternal life.
Lord, we thank you for the power of love. Thank you that your love never fails. Thank you for each couple doing this course, and we pray that you would bless each marriage and use them together to be a source of love and encouragement to many others. And we ask that in our marriages, love and faithfulness would meet together. For Jesus' sake. Amen.
That brings us to the end of this session. And we hope very much that you've enjoyed the whole course and that what you've learned will make a difference to your future together.
And we hope that as you keep investing in your relationship, it will grow deeper and stronger in the years to come. Thank you for joining us. Goodbye.
Goodbye.